po tayong 6 units. Okay, so now this is our program for the second day ng ating pong DOST FNRI webinar series Rewind. So we'll have a recap, and then after that, we'll have the webinar on FEL, and then open forum, and then the webinar on FCT, then open forum, and lastly, the post-test and evaluation. So good morning, everyone. I'm Colleen Diaz, and I will be your moderator for this session. So let's start this session with our recap po. Okay, we encourage everyone to participate po sa ating pong recap through Slido. Okay, let me just share my screen for a while, please. So while waiting, yung attendance sheet link po natin ay nakalagay na po sa ating chat box. Please accomplish it with the correct and valid email address. Okay, kung meron po tayong dalawang PRC, isa lang po ang magkakaroon ng CPD units kung ano lang po yung nilagay po natin sa ating attendance. Okay, so if dalawa po ang ating profession, isa lamang po ang makakaroon ng CPD unit. Okay. Okay, so let's join our recap po. Ang mananalo po ng ating pong dito po sa ating recap ay magkakaroon ng 100 pesos self-card load. Okay, so you can scan po our QR or you can go to slido.com and enter the code. So, mayroon na po bang nakapasok sa atin pong session? So, again, you can scan po ng our QR code dito po sa ating screen, or you can go to slido.com and enter DOST FNRI. Okay, so you can enter po your name. Sana po yung enter natin na name ay yung ginagamit po natin dito sa ating Zoom para po mahanap po namin kayo ng mabilis. So meron na po tayong 9 and we have 175 Zoom attendees. Okay, again, yung mananalo po sa atin pong quiz recap ay magkakaroon po na 100 pesos self-card load. May 28 na pong sumali. May dadagdag pa po ba? So to join, you can go po sa slido.com and enter the code, or you can scan po this QR code. So we have 36 participants. And for those nakakapasok pa lamang po sa atin pong Zoom, ang ating pong attendance sheet link ay nasa atin pong chat box. Please accomplish with the correct or valid email address. May dadagdag pa po ba? May sasali pa po ba sa atin pong quiz? 41 participants. 43. Meron pa po bang sasali? Kung wala na po, let's start our quiz. Okay, good luck to our 45 participants. Okay. Sige, nagdadagdag pa po. Hanggang 50. Sige po, hanggang 50. Sige, bilang po ako ng 10. 1. Okay, sige, stop na po natin. First question, it is one of the PDRI value that is considered as the best estimate for the requirement. So ito po ay pabilisan ng pagsagot. Last 10 seconds. Okay, so the correct answer po is EAR. So 50%. So 50% of our participants is correct. Sino po kaya ang nanalo? Si Miss Rhea. Okay, sino po kaya si Miss Rhea and from where? Malalaman po natin yan later. Okay, meron pa po tayong tatlong questions. Okay, next one. It provides per meal recommendations of food intake. Close na po ang ating pong Slido. Maybe you can join po later sa ating mga questions po. Meron pa po tayo mga questions dito. Okay. 62% ang nagsabing pinggang Pinoy daw. Ang correct answer po is pinggang Pinoy. Ang nanguna po ulit ay si Miss Rhea. Okay. Next question po natin. It is considered as food guide on per day basis. So again, pabilisan po ito. Bilang patamaan, pabilisan din po ng pagsagot. 10 seconds left. 48 participants, 49. Okay. Okay, time's up. Okay, food pyramid and meal plan. Okay, ang discussion po natin kahapon, ang sabi ay food pyramid. Okay, sino po kaya ang nanguna pa din po si Miss Rhea. Okay, last question po. What is the 6th NGF key message or the nutritional guidelines for Filipino key message? Alin po ang pang-6? Last 10 seconds. May 6 pa po na hindi nakakapagsagot. Okay. Tingnan nga po natin. Maraming sumagot ng limit intake of salty, fried, fatty, and sugar-rich foods to prevent cardiovascular diseases. Ang sagot, ang tamang sagot po ay last, consume safe foods and water to prevent diarrhea and other food and waterborne diseases. So, ang nanalo po sa atin pong quiz ay si Sir Christopher. So, nasaan po si Sir Christopher? May we know po ang inyo pong complete name? And mag-message po kayo sa amin ang inyo pong complete name and your cell phone number. Ayan, si Sir Christopher Gregorio. Okay po. Mag-send po kayo ng inyo pong details, yung inyo pong number po for the 100 peso cell card load. Thank you po sa lahat po ng ating mga participants na sumali sa ating pong quiz recap. So now let's go back po sa ating pong discussion. So let's begin po ang ating pong webinar on food exchange list. So let me introduce our speaker. She is a registered nutritionist dietitian, had her Bachelor of Science in Nutrition at the University of the Santo Tomas, had her MS in Public Health Nutrition at the University of the Philippines, Manila. She is involved in research studies on development of nutrition tools, nutrition, and physical activity. She is currently a science research specialist too of the Nutrition Research and Development Group of DOST FNRI. Let us all welcome Ms. Noel Lynn C. Santos. Good morning po, Ms. Noel.
For attending the FEL webinar. And I hope you will get a lot of new information in this webinar. So before we start, we will be talking about what's new in the 4th edition food exchange list. So I'll be presenting to you the summary of the macronutrient compositions, the added food items, deleted food items, and transferred food items. So I hope that you'll be able to get something from this webinar. So let's start. So just a brief background for the food exchange list. So it was created to make calorie counting easier for diabetic patients during meal planning by simplifying the estimation of carbohydrate, protein, and fat through the use of exchanges in each food list. This was the main objective of the FEL before, but now the FEL is used for both normal and therapeutic patients. Now, the concept behind the FEL is the exchange system, which is created to group together food items containing approximately the same energy and macronutrient contents. So just a quick run through on the development process of the 4th edition FEL. So doing surveys, focus group discussions, and consultation with the core of group experts, followed which we use the latest version of the food exchange list and other. This was followed by portion size weighing and measurements. So we use actual food items and weighed it using a digital scale, as well as use like ruler and other measuring equipment. And then the last stage is the development of the prototype, which now leads to the latest edition of the food exchange list. So here, you can see on your screens the summary of macronutrient composition of FEL. Change here, we no longer have the vegetables A and B. And then for the rice group, we have now three classifications: the rice A, which is the low protein, the rice B, which is the medium protein, and the rice C, which is the high protein. The rest are there are no changes for the rest of the food groups. So I'll be referring to CP as carbohydrate, protein, and fat. So we also have other food lists available. First off is the selected food list, which contains commonly classified in 7 food lists presented as appendices. Next is the beverage list, which contains mostly processed beverages, followed by the free food list, which are any food or drink that contains a few calories or less than 16 calories per serving. We also have the alcoholic beverages, which is presented in their usual serving portion. So the discussion will be in this flow. So we will start with the macronutrient composition per food group, followed by the added food items, the deleted food items, and the transferred food items. For the first food group, the vegetable
So apologies po for technical problem po. Wait lang po tayo sa ating pong webinar. Thank you po. So while waiting, again, please accomplish our attendance sheet with the valid and correct email address po para makapagsagot kayo ng post-test and evaluation via our iTrain account and for you to be able to get a certificate. Okay po? So we'll be sending again the attendance sheet link para po sa mga kakapasok pa lamang po sa ating pong Zoom meeting. And so, ang ating pong attendance sheet ay nakalagay na po ulit sa ating pong chat box for those na hindi pa po nakakapagsagot ng ating attendance sheet ay nasa chat box po ang ating link. Okay, so let's continue po our discussion.
In a separate table, although it is still under the vegetable list. So we also added the following food items. So vegetable that contains 16 calories per exchange are the following. So these are the additional food items. So we have the frozen green peas, the frozen mixed vegetables, broccoli, artichoke, yacon, as well as kale. For the deleted food items, which is mostly vegetables commonly used as garnish, we have excluded this because we actually do not consume a large amount of these food items. So examples of the deleted food items are coriander or unsoy, garlic leaves, pepper leaves, and celery. Now, the second food group is the fruit exchange list. So as you can see, there are no change in macronutrient composition, and we still retain the 10 grams carbohydrate, which is equivalent to 40 calories. So per exchange. The added food items for the fresh fruits are the different varieties of selected fruits. We also have included more imported fruits available in the market, more local fruits, and more fresh fruit juices. Now, for the processed or canned fruits, we also added blueberry in heavy syrup, frozen strawberry, and lychee in syrup. As you can see here, the banana Q, turon, and maruya are no longer part of the fruit exchange list. They are now transferred to the selected food list due to adjustment in weight to reflect usual serving portion. Also, some of the beverages under the fruit exchange list are now transferred to the beverage list. So in the beverage list, the items included here are all processed beverages. So now you will find here the sweetened and unsweetened fruit juices. Next, the next list is the milk exchange list. So there are no change in macronutrient composition, and we still have the three sub-classification: the whole milk, the low-fat milk, and the skim or non-fat or fat-free milk. So wala pong change dun sa composition niya. For the added food items, we now have the powdered filled milk, the goat's milk, and the plain low-fat yogurt. Now, some changes can be observed in a measurement. So previously, the old measurement of powdered milk is 4 tablespoons. Now the new measurement is 5 tablespoons. For the Carabao's milk, the old measurement is 250 grams. For in the new food exchange list, it's reduced to 200 grams. The next exchange list is the rice exchange list, which is the most commonly used part of the FEL. So as you can see here, we now have three sub-classification: the rice A, or the low protein, which contains the low protein food items and has a composition of 23 grams carbohydrate. And almost low protein and fat, which is equivalent to the rice B is the medium protein, which is this is the version as well as 2 grams protein, which is equivalent to 100 calories. And now we have the rice calorie count of 108 calories. Behind the changes for this food group is that most food items in the rice list are staple food items, which are consumed in larger quantities compared to other food items. So with this, we need to classify in order to minimize under and overestimation of so just a quick run through. So in the rice A list, this contains mostly the food items here are mostly rice, cereal, and cereal products. For rice tea, it contains mostly breads and bakery products with 4 grams of protein. So maha blanca, sweet potato noodles, which is usually used in Korean cuisine, morado and yellow kamote, kamoting kahoy or lidopak, ichi pichi made of kamoting kahoy, bolsaba banana, and tapioca sago. For rice B, we have brown rice, red rice, bibingka, pinipig, brown puto, suman, morwecos, panyog, morado, huapaw, toasted bread, corn grits, mais sabusal na puti, and plantains. And lastly, for rice C, we have the following additional items: pinagong, white and whole wheat pita bread, couscous, udon, balat ng lumpia, buto ng langka, and quinoa. So why are the food items with brand names not included? So most of the food in the old exchange list are no longer available in the market. Thus, the group decided to remove it in the new FEL. So for the transferred food items, we have the following. So the regular ice cream and rice or corn kernels are no longer part of the rice exchange list. They are now transferred to the selected food list due to change in macronutrient content. And then for the next exchange list, the meat exchange list, we have no change in macronutrient composition and still retain the 3 sub-classification in the meat exchange group. So we still have the low-fat meat, the medium-fat, and high-fat meat with varying fat content. So for the low-fat, it's still 1. For the medium-fat, it's still 6. And for the high-fat, it's still 10. So the additional food items for this group is that we have the duck, cara beef, chevron, and frog for the meat and selected parts. We have various additional fishes like alumahan and saramolete. And then we also added additional kinds of shellfishes like batotoy, diwal, and kukol ginto. Now we have expanded also the list of cheeses in this food group. So we now have here the feta, gouda, parmesan, and queso de bola. So for the common street food are also included here. You can find here the chicken head barbecue, the chicken feet, and the one-day-old chick. Now for tunsoy tuyo, this was excluded in the current list because the energy and macronutrient composition are no longer available in the FC. Now, some food items are transferred list to a different subgroup. So before the chicken leg was considered as low fat, but now it is considered as medium fat, 30 grams. So previously 30 grams yung weight ng chicken, ngayon 35 grams na po siya. Now, the same goes for tinapang bangus, which is considered a low fat meat item. It is now in the medium fat, but still has the same weight. Another was considered a low fat food item, but now it is transferred to the medium fat subgroup grams per exchange. So other transferred items are the tocino, pigeon, various beans like pigeon pea seeds, and which is seeds dried, Vienna pilipit, pigeon pea seeds, and nahalaan. So these food items are transferred to the selected food list due to updates in the macronutrient content. The last major exchange list is the fat exchange list. So here you can see that there are no changes in the macronutrient composition. So we still have per exchange 5 grams of fat with a total of 45 calories. But we still retain the classification of saturated, mono, and polyunsaturated fats. Added food items in the fat exchange list are beef tallow, sour cream, whipped cream, and others like MCT oil, palm oil, lard, and salad dressings. We also have various nuts like cashew nut, squash seeds, watermelon seeds, and walnut, macadamia nuts, pop bean, sesame seeds, and flax seeds. Sorry. So the last food exchange list is the sugar or the seventh list. So sugar is still the same. There are no in the macronutrient composition per exchange of carbohydrate with a total of 20 calories. So the added food items here are the assorted carrageenan gel or commonly called jelly A's here in the Philippines. And we also added cocoa syrup, locum, dulce de leche, dried fruits, kiamoy, and leche flan. Now, since milk, the previous measurement is 2 teaspoons at 10 grams. Now, in the new FEL, we have the new exchange is 1 teaspoon with a total of 5 grams. Also, the yema, before there were still available small versions of the yema, but due to change in time, hindi na po acceptable yung 5 grams na one exchange na yema. So the new measurement of yema is at 25 grams, which is equivalent to 4 exchanges. So the halo-halo was previously included in the FEL, but the group has decided to remove it in the sugar exchange list since in practice, R&Ds would usually break down the ingredients of the halo-halo and that there is no standard recipe available for this food item. Now, we will also run through the various food items, part of the different lists, additional lists in the FEL. So starting with the beverage list, the added food items are various flavored cereal drink, sports drink, flavored water, plain and chocolate soy milk, almond milk, rice milk, 3-in-1 coffee, and instant milk tea in powdered form. For the selected food list, we have the following additional food items. So classic granola, muesli cereal, mashed potato, mozzarella cheese, chicken luncheon meat, mixed nuts, and meat and seafood dumplings in fried and steamed version. Now, I'll be showing to you a short video on the sample computation of on how to use the food exchange list. Can you hear the audio? Sorry.
Oh, man.
Miss Noel, na-audio po.
Hold on.
Allocate the number using the sample format and diet prescription of 1,500 calories, 245 grams carbohydrate, 55 grams protein, and 35 grams fat. First, allocate the number of exchanges for all food furnishing carbohydrates, starting with vegetables, fruit, milk, and sugar, and compute its equivalent energy and macronutrient content. Second, determine the rice exchanges by subtracting the prescribed carbohydrate with the carbohydrate partial sum from the first four food lists. Divide the difference by 23 grams, which will result to the number of rice exchanges. Third, determine the meat exchanges by subtracting the prescribed protein with the protein partial sum from the first 5 food lists. Divide the difference by 8 grams, which will result to the number of meat exchanges. Fourth, determine the fat exchange by following the same steps in deriving the allowances for carbohydrate and protein. Use 5 as the divisor since one fat exchange contains 5 grams of fat. Distribute the exchange units into breakfast, lunch, supper, and snacks, depending on the individual's eating habits. Are you ready to prepare a meal plan?
So that is the short video on how to calculate the food exchange list. It's still the same like what's taught in school. However, meron lang pong changes to sa mga subgroups natin. So as mentioned, wala na pong vegetable A and vegetable B. Isa na lang po yung vegetable, isang list na lang po yung part ng vegetable list. And mostly considered po doon yung vegetable food items with at least 16 calories per exchange. And also some adjustments in the computation for the rice exchange list. We need to allocate food items. We need to add our rice when computing the diet. Now, we also have additional other information or other FEL resources are also available here at FNRI through the Help Online website. So I'll just give you a run through of what you can also see in or the to download in this website FEL. So once you're registered the online website, then just click the FEL button. There's information that was also presented. Books. So we have here the macronutrient FEL, which was also presented to you early. Visual guide where you can see the various images of per exchange, and the video that was also
Hi there.
presented
And
earlier.
measurement
So
of each food
in this video, you'll
separate
be
list.
able to see the history, the development process, and as well as until the computation of the FEL. So with this, I'm ending my presentation. So for the usual question like where to buy FEL at DOS at for inquiries, please email Miss Hazel at lat@hazel@gmail.com. So thank you very much, and I hope to.
Okay, so thank you very much po, Ms. Noel, for the discussion on the new food exchange list. So there are questions po for clarification lang. For again, relative po for those who have two PRC ID or PRC number, yung in-enter nyo lamang po ang mabibigyan po natin ng CPB units. So, isa lang po na profession, pipili lamang po kayo ng profession na gusto po ninyong magkaroon ng CPB units. Okay? So, for doon naman po sa ang ating pong webinar is live stream po sa ating YouTube channel. So, available po ito after our webinar sa ating pong YouTube channel for your recap po. Okay, so before we go on po sa ating pong mga questions para po sa ating resource speaker, ako po muna ang magtatanong sa inyo ng isa pong question. So, ang makakasagot po nito ay mananalo po ng muli ng isang 100 peso cell card load. Okay. So, pabilisan na lamang po magtaas ng kanilang kamay sa pagsagot po dito sa ating question. Okay. So, what was used to compute for the energy, carbohydrate, protein, and fat of the fourth edition of the FEL? Sino pong nag-raise? May nag-raise na po ba? So again, yung makakasagot po sa ating question ay makakatanggap na 100 peso load, cell card load. So again, what was used to compute for the energy, carbohydrate, protein, and fat of the fourth edition of the FEL. So ito po yung sa methodology ng atin pong bagong FEL. Si Sir Francis. Okay. Good morning po, Sir Francis. You can unmute to answer our question. Go ahead, sir. Yes, Sir Francis. Okay, so hello, sir. Okay, bilang si Sir pala ay nakapagsagot na kahapon sa ating pong question. Okay, so let's give chance to others. Si Ma'am Majin. Ayan, sige
Hello,
po.
Meijin po.
Majin, okay. Good
They
morning.
use the food composition tables.
Okay, they use the food
Food
composition.
composition tables.
Tables.
Of course, the FEL, FCT, and then the other FCTs available.
Okay, so thank you po, Miss Majin, for answering our question. Nanalo po kayo ng 100 peso cell card load. So please message us of your details po, your cell phone number and your full name po. Okay, so next, may question po ba tayo before we proceed po sa ating pong isa pang question para sa ating mga participants? Question po para naman sa ating resource speaker. Meron po ba? Do we have? Okay, may question po tayo regarding the availability po ng ating FEL. So, available na po ba ang hard copy ng FEL? And pwede po bang mag-order or does it have an e-copy of it? So, hello po, Ms. Noel.
Good morning to everyone. So yes po, available na po yung copy ng FEL. You can email the Miss Hazel Lat to request a copy of it. Hard copy lang po yung available ng FEL. We do not provide the soft copy of the book po. So you can buy the FEL here at DOST-FNRI.
Okay, so na-flash po kanina ang email address po ni Ms. Hazel. So, lot.hazel@gmail.com po for availing po ang ating FEL. So, Ma'am Noel, are there apps for easy FEL computations?
Currently, we don't have any available app for the FEL. That's why we release a video na lang po explaining how to use it, how to compute the requirements. But we will take note on your suggestion.
Okay. So, thank you po, Ms. Noel. So, thank you din po to Sir Francis for that suggestion. Another question po from Sir Norman. Good morning. Gusto ko po sana malaman, iisa na lamang ba ang value ng carbs, proteins, and calories ng mga veggies kung kaya wala ng vegetable A and B?
So, right now kasi sir, hi Sir Norman. So, right now po kasi we are encouraging intake of vegetables. Now, kaya po wala ng vegetable A and B is that during the development process po, we did the weighing and the calculations and we found like, for example, a cup of lettuce is hindi po siya aabot ng 16 calories. You need about, I think, 4 cups of lettuce para po maabot yung 16 calories. So, from the, during that process po, nagkaroon ng division. So, nakikita, yung mga vegetables na lang po na in-include sa FEL na using a half cup, meron siyang 16 calories, yun na lang po yung ina-account. The rest is para ad libitum, although syempre depende pa rin sa case ng patient. Pero yung isang list dun sa table, yung may table pa rin po dun, nakalagay dun yung iba't ibang vegetables na very minimal yung contribution ng energy despite even if kumain ka ng half cup or 1 cup.
Okay, so we hope po na sagot po ni Ms. Noel, Sir Norman, ang inyo pong question. Okay, so thank you din po. So another question po, can we buy FEL and get it delivered on our place?
Yes, I believe kayo po yung magse-set ng courier. So once you've settled the payment, you can book the courier na lang po dun sa place niyo po.
Okay, so thank you, Ms. Noel. Are there any questions pa po regarding our topic on food exchange list? Meron po bang may mga magtatanong pa po ba? Okay, another question po. How often do we update the FEL?
So, sir, the update really depends on the available FCT po. So, we were able to update the FEL a few years ago kasi po nag-release na rin po ng bagong FCT. So, once may available na pong new information then we can update the values din po ng FEL. So, as of the timeline, hindi po siya talaga nakaset kasi hindi naman din po ganun kabilis gawa ng FCT.
So for the email po of Ma'am Hazel, ilagay na lang po namin sa chat box ang email po ni Ms. Hazel para po maka-order kayo ng FEL. Okay? So thank you very much po, Ms. Noel, for that question and answer regarding the food exchange list. So let's give a round of applause, a virtual round of applause to Ms. Noel. Okay, so now, reminder po ulit sa ating mga participants, please accomplish the attendance sheet providing the correct email address po. Yung email address po na nilagay po ninyo sa ating or na ginamit nyo sa pag-register na ating iTrain account. Okay, so dahil tapos na po kayo magtanong sa ating resource speaker, ako naman po ang magtatanong ulit sa inyo. And ito po ay meron ding corresponding price. Again, a 100 peso load card po. Okay, next question. What are the major changes in the macronutrient composition of the FEL? So, it was discussed po kanina sa atin pong discussion, yung mga major changes. So, ano po yung mga major changes sa ating pong FEL? So, again, ang makakasagot po ng ating pong question ay magkakaroon na 100 peso cell card load. Kaya po ba mag-erase ng kanilang mga hands? Sige, let's give chance to others. So, Sir Edgar James C. Rodriguez. Okay, you can unmute po, sir, to answer po our question. Good morning, sir.
Hello po.
Hello po. Yes po.
Good morning. Marinig po.
Yes po. Loud and
Yes
clear,
po.
sir.
Based na sa na learn ko po today, bale yung big changes po or yung major changes po sa macronutrient composition ng FEL is yung pag-divide po ng rice exchange, dinivide siya into 3 based sa kanyang protein content. And yung vegetable din po, yung vegetable, inaswa na po siya kasi although maliit lang yung difference ng kanilang ng kanilang nutrient composition, macronutrient composition. Tapos meron din po tayong tinanggal na mga food na yung sa rice, yung mga variety ng rice na tinanggal kasi hindi na
Okay, so I guess natutol po ata, sir. But tama po ang kanyang mga sagot. Yes, sir.
Okay na po, ma'am. Narinig po, ma'am.
Yes po, narinig po namin. So,
I see.
congratulations po, Sir James, for that correct answer. So, yung major changes
Thank you so
po
much po.
ng ating pong FEL are the rice exchanges po. Nagkaroon na tayo ng 3 groups and the vegetable ay naging isa na. At nawala na po ang vegetable A and B. Okay, Sir James, please message us po ng inyo pong details, ang full name po ninyo at ang inyong cellphone number para po sa ating load. Okay, so thank you very much po sa ating mga participants for participating sa ating pong activity. Okay, let's proceed now po sa ating next speaker and next topic. Okay, let me introduce our next speaker. So she is a registered chemist. Had her Bachelor of Science in Chemistry at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, Laguna. She is a project leader on several food quality and safety researches, like also a project leader for updating the Philippine food composition tables, and had her expertise on laboratory analysis and dietary exposure assessment. She is currently a supervising science research specialist of the Food Quality and Safety section of DOST-FNRI. Let us all welcome Ms. Christine D. Nacionales. Good morning po, Ms. Christine.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Christine Nacionales, and as mentioned by Ms. Sean, I'm a supervising science research specialist from the Food Quality and Safety section. We know that DOST-FNRI is the lead agency in food and nutrition research, and it aims to continue and develop and enhance nutrition tools that aim at improving the quality of life of Filipinos. And one of these known tools is the Philippine FCT, which is widely used by most of us here in this forum, lalo na for the dietary intake, assessment, nutrition education, and developing of nutrition-related tools, and for planning of some of our interventions and diets. The statement of McCann and Widdowson from 1940s, which is a knowledge of the chemical composition of foods, is the first and essential dietary treatment of diseases or in any quantitative study of human and nutrition. I know for most of us still believes and holds true for this statement up to this point. We know that this data is very vital, lalo na yung quality ng data, yung quantity, at saka yung accessibility ng data, lalo na sa ating mga nagtatrabaho in nutrition and allied professional fields. To define, food composition tables and databases is a general repository of food component or nutrient data. It is also defined as a scientific tool or nutrition tool used as the basis for human nutrition and health studies. It is created on a country-by-country basis, which describes the nutritional and chemical information of their commonly consumed foods. And for here in the Philippines, the DOST-FNRI is the only data generator and compiler of the Philippine FCT. Some of the known uses of the Philippine FCTs are generally used primarily for the assessment of nutrient intakes, and also for planning, advising, or prescribing food and nutrient intakes. In both cases, for the assessment and planning, mas madalas ginagamit yung approach in a group rather than individuals. Also, the FCT and FCT databases are used for national and food and nutrition policies, lalo na po sa ating mga agriculturists when they plan their production. Also, it is used as one of the tools for the nutrition intervention programs and also for planning the diets. And lastly, it is used in nutrition education, lalo na po sa mga nag-aaral ng nutrition and food science. Some of the known limitations of FCTs and food composition databases are the following. first, we know that foods are biological in nature and exhibits variation significantly because of their environmental, genetic, and processing influence. So, environmental kung ano yung type ng soil sila tinanim, yung climate kung saan galing yung pagkain, also yung genetic composition din nila. Also, variations din from the storage condition, processing condition din, lalo na sa mga semi-processed food. And also yung sa iba naman, sa cultivars din, nagbabari, at saka sa animals naman, yung iba't ibang klase ng breeds. So, each country has its own consumption pattern din. So, yung mga nire-report sa kanilang FCT databases ay nagbabago din, ay iba-iba per country. So, may possible na kinakain dito sa bansa, itong halaman na to ay kinakain dito sa isang lugar na to. Meanwhile, ito naman ay hindi kinakain sa ibang lugar. So, each country may kanya-kanya silang consumption pattern, which results in country-specific foods or recipes or developed dining or foods. Also, in the advent of the food biodiversity, it highly influences the food composition of food. So, nutrient values may vary up to 1,000 times among different varieties of the same food. So, particularly, lalo na sa mga familiar dun sa carrots, merong mga matitingkad, at medyo yung iba, merong medyo mapusyaw lang. So, mostly their micronutrients, particularly yung beta-carotene nila, nagbabago or magkakaiba. So, yun. Napaka-diverse ng mga pagkain natin. And yun nga, lalo na yun sa mga trace or micro-minerals nila or micronutrients nila, nagbabago talaga sila or magkakaiba talaga sila. With the number of data that being generated by countries or by different regions, I think pwede tayong kumuha ng mga data from the published and other food composition databases. But still, sa dami po niya, lahat ng mga experts all over the world, I think, naisip din na dapat merong isang nag-harmonize ng mga activities din natin. Thus, the International Organization of Food Composition Program was established by the FAO. So the FAO established the InFoods system or the International Network of Food Data Systems. So it was established in 1984 and it is a worldwide network of food composition experts that aims to improve the quality, availability, reliability, and use of the food composition data. So their main activities includes the development of technical food composition guidelines and standards, assistance to regional data centers, and individual countries in developing their own FCTs and FCDBs, and publication of Journal of Food Composition and Analysis. So most of the food composition data activities by FNRI is aligned with the InFoods guidelines or network system, network guidelines, mga guidelines ng InFoods. InFoods is also organized into several regional data centers. So all over the world, we have 18 InFoods regional and sub-regional data centers. So si Philippine FCT is kabilang sa ASEAN Foods, which is currently headed by Thailand as our regional country coordinator. So the goal and objective of ASEAN Foods are aligned with those of InFoods po. So they aim to strengthen the development of national and regional food composition data with quality and adequate quantity and accessibility to the users in ASEAN and other regions. So recently yung mga efforts ni ASEAN Foods and the Asian Pacific Food Analysis Network or si AFPAN, which is currently headed by the Oceania Foods or the Australia, nagjo-join forces sila in developing guidelines and system for us, the data generator and compiler, be able to adapt with the changes and be able to provide quality data. So yun yung mostly na ginakandak ng ASEAN Foods and AFPAN. So si ASEAN Foods more on the compilation part and also for the development of or or assisting some of our member nations na makadevelop ng kanilang food composition databases, while si AFAN more on the quality or the interlaboratory upgrading or interlaboratory quality assurance system or for the food analysis. So for the method development and also for the some of the latest advances for the food analysis. So the recent activities of ASEAN Foods is recently lang tinulungan nila ang Lao PDR na ma-develop ang kanilang sariling FCT. So with that, based on the inputs, most of the input composition databases nowadays have the following data. First is the direct data, which is based on the chemical or nutrient analysis. Kaya pansin nyo kanina, partner ni ASEAN Foods kanina si AFAN, which is yun yung mostly ang focus ni AFAN, which is to improve the quality of the data generated in the laboratories. Also in the indirect data naman, which is from the other sources or published literatures and journals. So we know that direct data are preferable but involves a huge amount of investment in terms of financial resources and manpower and other utilities. So yan din, same with the food na nagbabago yung kanyang some of the components of the food due to some biodiversity and genetic or other geographical variations. Same then with our methods of analysis in the lab, nagbabago din siya. So yun, we have to adapt with the ever-changing advances in the analytical methods. Indirect data offers already an alternative for food composition data compilation. So we can, these indirect data naman are napaka-useful din in building up the food composition tables. However, when we do the indirect compilation or data compilation, it needs a lot of scrutiny and lot of several quality concerns din po when we use this indirect data. So hindi lang yung necessarily we just adapt it readily. So we have to check also the nutrients that we see from the food, other literatures in terms of their moisture and also their fat and other macronutrients adaptation. So most of the food composition database uses the combination of these indirect and direct data, which parang pinagsasama natin ang original analytical data together with the values taken from other databases. So as a screenshot from the indirect data compilation or the compilation, we use several guidelines for the food matching and also for the compilation tool na makikita rin natin sa input guidelines and several checking of the food data sources. Meanwhile, sa direct data generation, we do the sampling, the documentation, the sample and preparation, then all of the samples na we collected, we make sure na we analyze it for moisture first. Then we do all the chemical extraction and do the analysis. So when we gather all the data source, the following are the stages in food composition data where the data source are being combined, lahat siya from the analytical data, from the food matching data namin, and yung mga other food composition databases. So most of the time, ang ginagawa sa Philippine food composition data, yung mga important food items sa Philippines ay yun ang ina-analyze natin, and yung mga least important ay yun yung mostly na hinahanapan natin ng values from using the indirect data. Then we have the archival database, then the reference database where with the calculation and estimation and evaluation from the indirect data or adaptation to fat content of Philippine FCT food items were done. And also from some of the computations on checking of the vitamin A towards retinol activity equivalent were also checked and done. And also for as reference for the final user database na usually, ito na po yung nakikita natin in a book or in online. But first, before we introduce the updated Philippine FCT, medyo throwback muna tayo. Kailan pa ba nag-start si Philippine FCT? So I think most of us hindi pa pinapanganak or baka kapanahon na ng ating mga grandparents. 1951 ang kauna-unahang Philippine FCT. So ito yung picture niya. It's just a small handbook. Sobrang small and I think FNRI na lang ang meron nito sa kanyang library. It composes of 383 food items and also includes local and scientific and English names of each food edible portion, food energy, proximate composition. It has 3 minerals then and 5 vitamins. So it was pioneered by Dr. Carmen Intengnan of the Institute of Nutrition pa noon, ang FNRI, way back sa Heran or sa UP Manila. Then in 1957, naglabas ng food composition tables ulit, which is the revised edition of the 1951 that includes from 300 plus food items to 700 food items siya. And it included local, scientific, and English names of each food. May edible portion na rin siya. Food energy, proximate composition, 5 minerals, and 5 vitamins. So, Institute of Nutrition pa rin noon si FNRI, and yun, from Dr. Intengnan, it was published by, still published by Dr. Intengnan. And some of the nutrients here or some of the minerals here are from the studies of Dr. Camara and Besa in Bataclan in 1952. Our next edition of the Philippines FCT is around 1968. So it included 963 food items and retained the 1957 food components. And yun, in-update nila ang database in terms of the amino acid composition of the Philippine plants. So, and also some of the moisture and calcium and oxalic acid of some Philippine plants. And also it is one of the first FCTs with glossary of local food names. And also, this version of the FCT this edition of FCT na to ay merong 5 dialects. So hindi lang siya English and Tagalog. And in 1980s, this edition of the book includes the beta-carotene and also the table for some of the anti-nutrients such as some of the tables for fighting total phosphorus, calcium content of foods. And some of the minerals are also provided. Then in 1990s, it is na-incorporate yung data quality features or na first na ni-launch ni Infood Guidelines. So, ni-revise yung 1980 and chinek yung data quality features ng Infood. So, dito kasi nag-start yung mga on how they are going to yun sa mga values on how are they going to report it, scientific names na reporting included dito sa version na to, and also some of the data quality features of Infood's guidelines were also adapted in this edition. So also the first volume then na computerized, and it is the physiologic energy factors for calculating energy values were also done, and factors for calculating protein from nitrogen using the factors are also included here, and also the new food index of English and Filipino names were also seen here in this edition. And yung I think mostly nakagamit pa rin ang mga participants natin, including myself, lalo na nung nag-aaral din ako, is the 1997 Philippine FCT. Actually, during my first work din, gamit ko tong si 1997 FCT. With this FCT, it is harmonized with the ASEAN foods kung saan din naging active din si ASEAN foods sa ating region. So, additional food items were analyzed and collected using the ASEAN Food Sampling Guidelines na usually na ginagamit pa rin ngayon. And the methods of analysis and calculation were presented in this book. And now, the latest version or the updated version of the Philippine Food Composition Tables is the 2019 which is composed of 34,601 nutrient data with 1,542 food items, 23 food components, and 17 food groups, with the addition of 6 new food components like the total sugar, sodium, cholesterol, saturated, monounsaturated, and polysaturated fatty acids. And also this edition of the book includes the total dietary fiber, vitamin A retinol activity equivalent, we also replaced the crude fiber and the vitamin A retinol equivalent respectively. So some of the features of the Philippine FCT 2019 na I think kasi most of us, diretso na agad tayo dun sa main data without checking the other parts of the Philippine FCT book. So in this forum, I guess medyo i-browse natin siya paunti-unti. So it has an explanatory notes. So all some of the brief information on how we generate the food data and compile the data ay nandito po. Also, some of the major food groups and codings. If you have major food groups in mind, baka or subgroupings na in mind, you can check this with our table for major food grouping and food codes and food types, which is makikita sa explanatory notes of the book. Also, some of the information on how we generate the nutrients using the methods kung ano yung methods of analysis na ginamit namin or calculation for that certain nutrient ay also included in the explanatory notes, and also the modes of expression. And also we, as part of the in-foods guidelines, we have to also to include the in-foods tag name just for data interchange then in preparation for data interchange. So when we define ASH, for example here, or FIBDTG for the total dietary fiber, it holds true for some of the members of the in-foods. Pag nakita nila FIBDTG, we note that it is a total dietary fiber. So the layout of the Philippine FCT. So compared with the previous layout, so we opted to put lines so para medyo madali siyang makita. And yun nga po, we have the food ID, food description, scientific name, and the alternate or common names, the edible portion, and the 23 nutrient and food nutrient or food component. Also, the latter part of the book, which includes the appendices, where we included the niacin values from tryptophan, also some generated values or analyzed values of potassium and zinc values can be shown also for some of the selected food items at the appendices, and also some of the fatty acid profile of some of the selected food items that we analyze. Also in the appendices, we also checked and updated the glossary terms. Also, the food index can be seen also at the latter part of the book, where you can see the food ID, food description, food group, data source, and the page number. So I think for those users in 1997, dito rin tayo unang tumitingin where we check yung some of our food items. So as a reminder po, for the food codes or our food ID for this and our FCT, we term it as a food ID. We use the alpha codes, which refers to the letter assigned to the particular food group, while the numeric code is the numerical chronological order within the food group. Food ID already assigned to a particular food should remain and cannot be reassigned to other foods even if the original item has been rendered obsolete. So we just, hindi na namin pwedeng na-assign na namin food ID sa kanya rather than identifying niya yon. So hindi siya pwedeng palitan lalo na kapag na-obsolete na siya. So para sa kanya lang yan. Food ID also, yun po. As a reminder, it is already assigned to a particular food ID and should remain. So as you can see, pag nagdagdag kami ng bagong analyzed food item, we follow the last number, pero ang pagkaka-arrange pa rin namin ay alphabetized. For the food groupings, still we follow the ASEAN food or the ASEAN food groupings pa rin. So we have 17 food groups, which is alam natin sa A, cereals and products. B, which is categories for starchy roots and tubers and products. C, nuts, dried beans and seeds and products. D, for the vegetables. E, for the fruits and products, meats and other animals and products. For F, and G, for finfish, eggs and products. For H, tapos J for milk, fats and oils, K, and sugar and confectionery and condiments, M and N respectively. So also we have some alcoholic beverages, non-alcoholic beverages, and some of our analyzed and combination foods and commercial baby foods and miscellaneous. Also, as a reminder, the nomenclature and description, these include the food naming, food description, and food classification and coding. These parameters are mandatory as they provide identity for a specific food. So, yun, scientific names then are generally important when we look into our foods for precise data and identification and data interchange. That's why in our updating of FCT, we make sure that we update or we check if it's still that item holds that scientific name. So we consulted it with the experts from National Museum, BFAR, Bureau of Plant Industry, Philippine Rice Research Institute, International Institute of Plant Breeding in UPLB, and also from the from the Institute of Human and Food Nutrition, also in UPLB. So also we also check the scientific names from authoritative sources and taxonomic databases such as the Sign Finder, Plants Database, and other sources too. So as an example, for the Yacon tubero, we describe the food name as this with the food ID, scientific name, and their alternate name. So from some of the processed food also, we abbreviated some of their description from the food name, but included the scientific name. So we hold and also the alternate name. And as a reminder, from some of the abbreviations shown here in the FCT can be found also in the explanatory notes. Also, the components and convention and expression were followed followed namin din sa inputs guidelines, where all the nutrient and component of Philippine FCT data were expressed per 100 gram edible portion, which is the common denominator for all FCTs and FCD databases. So for each nutrient or component have the following decimal places. So example, for cholesterol, whole number siya. Sa vitamin C, whole number din siya. And for the protein, meron siyang 1 decimal place after the period, one significant 1 decimal places. And for the edible portion, take note, it consists of the parts of the food items that are eaten, cooked, or preserved. So the laboratory generated the edible portion from a series of measurements, several number of weighings, and several recording of the refuse and the edible portion. Also, some of the reminders, for the information from the sampling procedure that we use the ASEAN Food Data System Guidelines, ASEAN Food Data Guidelines, where samples were taken from 10 collection points, generally in supermarkets, grocery, or wet markets located in the east, west, north, and south sections of Metro Manila, where we presume that these are the distribution areas from mostly of our foods commonly consumed. Some of the details or categorization of our nutrient and food components. So we term the water, energy in KCAL using total carbohydrate by difference, protein, total fat, total carbohydrate and ash as proximate. Meanwhile, the other carbohydrates included dito ang total dietary fiber and total sugars. And the minerals, which is known as the calcium, included dito ang calcium, phosphorus, iron, and sodium. And for the vitamins, we have the fat and the water-soluble vitamins. Mostly for the water-soluble vitamins are the B vitamins and with the vitamin C. And the fat-soluble vitamins currently, we have only vitamin A and beta-carotene. For the lipids, we categorize is for the three major fatty acid group. So the saturated, monounsaturated, and the polyunsaturated fatty acid. And lastly, the sterol or the animal sterol, the cholesterol. So for information, the nutrient values were presumed as zero in this food composition table, particularly the total dietary fiber, in which zero siya for the single animal foods. Also, the retinol in single plant foods were presumed as zero. Beta-carotene in white and very light-colored single or combination foods were also presumed as zero. And also cholesterol in single plant foods are zero then. And the ascorbic acid in single raw processed animal foods, combination foods, dried beans, cooked, and canned fish, and unless fortified are zero then. And also yung fatty acids natin, when fat content is less than or equal to 0.5% of their fat, the results obtained were below the detection limit na zero po siya. So, for the Philippine FCT 2019, the group planned, hopefully it will be released soon, the Philippine Food Composition Tables User's Guide, where you can use this to help FCT familiarize more and understand the Philippine FCT handbook and for the appropriate use of some Philippine FCT data. So it will serve as a guide based dito sa current na publication ng 2019. So the Philippine Users Guides includes the following parts. So chapter 1 then for the description of the parts and features of the 2019 updated Philippine FCT. Also the proper use section where also can also be seen in the user's guide, and some of the limitations and common errors, including their examples, are also given here. And lastly, some of the field factors that we generated from our laboratory will also be included in the Philippine User's Guide. So some of the sample exercises and for us to be able to check if we have understood the user's guide or the book, meron din itong kasama. And also for the information din po of our attendees here, our online database din is currently available din po for those na hindi maka-access po ng food. If you have internet connection po, you can access also our data at the FEL FCT under FNRI network. So the web-based Philippine FCT, ito yung ang additional features niya includes the photo documentation for each food item. Upon checking the nutrient tab. So currently, pwede nyo, pag available po yung photo for that certain food item, pwede nyo po siya ma-access or click. And also, this data can also be printed in PDF form together with your per single food item. So, ito po yung sample ng printed form when you access the FEL FCT database online. So, libre po siya. You can access it anytime. So, before I end, I would like to acknowledge po the Philippine FCT project team together with Ms. Rina Rodriguez, Alexandra David, Maria Alisa Bailosis, Jem Serrano, Arisindag, and all to all our Philippine FCT compilers and data generators and simula ng food composition data program. Maraming salamat po, and I hope you learn from this webinar po. Thank you and have a blessed day ahead.
Okay, so thank you to our resource speaker, Ms. Christine Nacionales, for the discussion on the new food exchange list. So now the floor is open for your questions, clarifications regarding po sa ating discussion. Are there any questions po? You can also unmute po to ask question po para sa ating resource. So again, reminder to everyone that paki-accomplish po ang ating attendance sheet providing the correct and valid email address para hindi po tayo magkaroon ng problem in getting our certificates. Okay? So, may question po dito. Available din po ba ang hard copy ng FCT? How much and how to order?
Yes po. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes
ma'am.
po. For the availment po of the Philippine Food Composition Tables Handbook po, I posted po a document here sa chat box natin. You can click po for the further instruction. So available po sa FNRI ang handbook po worth 1,000 pesos po. So for the availment process po, you can check po in our chat box po. Thank you very much po.
Okay, so thank you po, Ms. Tin. Ayan po, may nilagay po si Ms. Tin sa ating po chat box. For those who want to avail po ang ating FCT, just click or download po yung ating file. Okay. So, are there questions po? Clarifications, inquiries, na gusto po nating itanong sa ating mga resource speaker habang nandito pa po sila. So may tanong po dito, are there food data obtained from the international food databases?
Yes, there are some food nutrient na merong kaming inadopt from the international FCT. So may documentation po sa ating handbook if ano po yung mga items po na yon na merong included yung international data na kasama. So as per inputs then, the best way that we can populate din yung ating FCT is yung combination ng direct data and indirect data. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you po, Ms. Tin, Sir Delco. Sana po ay nasagot ni Ms. Tin ang inyo pong question regarding the international food databases. So, sabi po kanina ay 1,000 pesos po ang ating FCT. So, if you wish to avail our FCT, nandito po sa ating Zoom chat box, yung Word file po na tutulungan po kayo kung paano natin i-avail ang FCT. Okay, so you can download po or check the file po sa ating chat box. Okay, so are there any questions pa po? Okay, so meron po dito from Sir Norman. So possible po ba na madagdagan pa ng ilang nutrients ang ating FCT?
Yes po, and we are happy to announce po na currently ongoing po yung aming additional component na population po for the FCT such as the trans fat, the amino acid. Hopefully pag natapos yung aming projects and lab analysis, ma-include po namin siya readily sa online. So continuous po ang data generation po ng FNRI for the Philippine FCT. Thank you.
Okay, so good news po yan para sa ating lahat and most especially sa mga gumagamit po ng ating FCT. So, are there any questions po? Okay, may question po dito, ma'am. Is the updated FCT user's guide available or pwede pa ba gamitin yung 1997 user guide?
Ayun po. Currently po, the Philippine FCT Users Guide na updated po is hopefully to be released next year, early siguro first quarter kasi may mga printing pa po na kailangan gawin and also the copyright processing din po niya. We can still use the 1997 Users Guide. However po, be careful lang po tayo sa paggamit nun since most of the examples po from the old Users Guide ay nakabase siya sa 1997 na handbook. So although some of it naman po ay applicable pa rin sa ating updated, we might just want to be careful in checking lang po for the examples and the principles po na gagamitin natin when we use the User's Guide. So you can still use po the 1997 User's Guide. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you po, Ms. Tin. So again, pwede pa po natin gamitin yung 1997 User's Guide po. And yung new User's Guide ay will be available po sana next year, first quarter. Okay, so are there questions pa po? Clarifications na gusto pa po ninyong itanong sa ating resource speaker? Parang wala na. Kung wala na po, I thank you po, Ms. Tin, and let's give her a virtual round of applause. So, kung wala na po kayong tanong, ako naman po ang magtatanong sa inyo. Okay, so ito po ay... Ang makakasagot po muli ng ating pong question ay makakatanggap ng 100 peso load card. Okay, so are you ready? So pabilisan na lamang po ng pagtaas ng kamay and let's give chance to others po na makasagot sa ating question. Okay, the question is, what are the 6 new food components in the FCT?
Okay po, so while waiting for Miss Colleen, may we ask po Ma'am Janina Krishna to answer for the question po of Miss Colleen.
Hello,
What
ma'am.
are the... Yes po, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning,
Opo,
ma'am.
ma'am. Loud and clear po.
Okay po. So, yung new food components po ay total sugar, sodium, cholesterol, saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated fatty acids.
Okay po. Thank you po, ma'am. Anim. Tama po. Ayan. Tama po ang inyong sagot. Ayan po si Miss Colleen. Ma'am Colleen. Nakuha ni Ma'am Janina yung ating question. Okay. Miss Colleen, you're on mute po. Nakamute po kayo, Miss Colleen. Okay po. Sige po. So, Miss Janina, please message po to Miss Jane Sunef, DOST FNRI, your details po for your price po of 100 peso load po. Okay po. So, Miss Colleen. Okay, yan. May audio ka na, Miss Colleen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you po. Thank you po, Ms. Sean. So once again, to our participants po na nakasagot sa ating mga questions for today's session, please message Miss Jane Sune po of your details. And we'll be sending po the 100 cell card load to you. Okay, so Miss Sean, please can you share screen? Okay, once again, thank you po sa ating mga resource speaker for sharing their knowledge and expertise po sa ating pong topic for today, which are the food exchange list and the food composition table. So, once again, a reminder to everyone po, please provide your PRC ID number and PRC ID expiration date in the iTrain account. So, yung mga dalawa po, ang PRC ID number or profession, pipili lamang po kayo ng isa nyong profession or PRC ID number na magkakaroon po ng CPD units. Okay po? Next, please. So please also edit po your name in the account. Please note that the name you enter in the account will be reflected in your certificate. So yung pangalan po na nakalagay sa iTrain accounting nyo ay automatically yun po ang malalagay sa inyong mga certificates. So please click the attendance sheet link again provided in the Zoom chat box and please accomplish the attendance sheet and provide the email address you use in the FNRI or iTrain registration. Once again, para hindi po tayo magkaroon ng problem in getting your certificate, dapat po ay yung email address na ginamit po natin sa pag-register sa iTrain or IFNRI ay yun po ang ilalagay natin sa attendance sheet link provided po sa ating Zoom chat box. So if you fail to provide the correct email address, the system will not be able to process your certificates. Okay? So you have until 12 noon to accomplish the attendance sheet para hindi po tayo magkaroon ng problema again. Your email address po na ginamit sa registration ng IFNRI or iTrain ang inyo pong ilalagay sa inyo pong attendance sheet. Okay, thank you. Next, please. Okay, the certificate for the 4-day DOST FNRI webinar series Rewind will be given on a per session basis. So thus, you need to answer the post-test and evaluation per session. Okay? So wala po kaming ibibigay na isang certificate para po sa 4 na araw na DOST FNRI webinar series. So please log in to your iTrain account at 1 p.m. and answer the post-test and feedback form and click the profile button and answer. Okay, 1 p.m. po, mag-up na po ang ating post-test and evaluation. So if your profession po is a nutritionist dietitian, you can download your certificate po directly sa ating iTrain website. Okay, so answer the post-test and evaluation and then download your certificates. So para po sa iba nating mga profession, to receive a certificate po, kailangan naka-register tayo sa iTrain, nakapagsagot tayo ng attendance sheet, okay, given po during the webinar, nakapagsagot tayo ng post-test sa iTrain and evaluation form sa iTrain. Okay? Next, please. So if your profession po is not a nutritionist dietitian and you are a chemist, a professional teacher, agriculture, chemical engineer, midwifery, and medical technology, please do not download the certificate from the iTrain website because it will not bear the correct CPD units for your profession. So after answering po the post-test and evaluation form, the iTrain Secretariat will email your certificate. So please give us 14 days to send the certificates. So once again, maraming salamat po sa inyo pong oras sa pag-attend ng ating second day of the DOST webinar, DOST FNRI webinar series Rewind. So we hope magkita-kita pa po tayo sa mga susunod pa pong webinar ng DOST FNRI. Ingat po tayong lahat and salamat po.
Everything today is faster. Everything today is easier. With technology getting better, it doesn't mean we're getting healthier. While the kids are young, while the parents are working, while the stress is tough, just remember the following. Go for a daily dose of nutrition. Go for a balanced meal with variation. Run a exercise. Aim for healthy lifestyles. Inspire to the same. Doesn't need to end that fast. If you choose health, the longer you last. Go for a daily dose of nutrition. Go for a balanced meal with variation. Go for a round or two of exercise. Healthy lifestyles. Go for a daily dose of nutrition. Go for a balanced meal with variation. Go for a round or two of exercise. Aim for healthy lifestyle. Live longer, happier, better with FNRI. Everything today is faster. Everything today